My estate agency story with Jamie Fisher. Today I'm joined by Jamie Fisher, who is an estate agent from Essex, and he's here to tell me about his story of being an estate agent and how he's gone from negotiator all the way up to being a broker of a large estate agency firm. Thanks for joining me today, Jamie.
Thanks for the invitation. It's lovely. Glad to be here.
Jamie, what I want you to do is walk us through your journey so far. Because now, how old are you now? You
42.
42. Why you became an estate agent, what you've learned on the journey, the ups and the downs, the trials and tribulations.
Yeah.
So the ladies and gentlemen watching this can learn from your story.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, it's perfect. Yeah.
So born in 1982.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad, tell us a bit about them.
I was born, my mum and dad, they separated about 6 months after I was born, so I don't think that was good. But all amicable. So I grew up with split parents, with a stepdad and mum, which was, I was very fortunate, I think personally, growing up, because I had a stepfather who was very career driven, had a family business, heating engineering business. So I got to see the side of discipline and hard work that you need to own and run a business of your own. And my dad was always the dad that was there for football, for after school clubs, that type of thing as well. So I think I had a really...
So you had two dads for
yeah.
one?
Yeah, two dads for us one. And I called, they're both dads. I don't have a dad or stepdad. So I actually think I was really fortunate.
What did your mum teach you?
Family, like homely. She was always at home. So I suppose running the house in terms of looking after the family. And just, she's my mum. So yeah, whenever there's a problem, it's always mum.
Whereabouts were you brought up?
I was born in Colchester, in Essex, and we live just outside Colchester. So they still live in the same house, my mum and stepdad, that I was pretty much brought up in. So yeah.
I think it was the first proper city in the UK, wasn't it, Colchester? Because of the Romans.
Yeah. So growing up, that was all. Yeah, that's cool. That's all you learn about.
It's a lovely. It's a city, isn't it?
Yeah, city now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been there a number of times. It's a lovely place.
Yeah.
Lovely place.
Yeah, I actually my first job as a estate agent was there, and I loved growing up in Colchester. So yeah, it's a nice place.
So as you were growing up, did you know what you wanted to be? And we're talking about, you're 7, 8, 9. Did you want to be like a rocket scientist or?
Footballer, as most young boys do, yeah. And I played football 7 days a week, loved it. And I vaguely remember the day when you realise you're not going to be a professional footballer, about 13, 14. And at that point, school I struggled quite a bit because I didn't have a clear idea of what I wanted to do. So school was something I had to go to because you go to school. But I didn't have any idea what I was going to do as a career. And it affected me quite a lot going into college, at my GCSEs, sorry, because a lot of people I was friends with at school had an idea of what they were all going to university, and I didn't have the foggiest what I was going to do, to be honest.
And how did that affect you?
Confidence was quite, I probably, by the time I left school, I didn't have a lot of confidence. I had bad acne as well, which is for 2 years. So my last 2 years at school were I enjoyed being around my friends, but I just I felt a little bit out of depth with it.
So you went to did your GCSEs?
Yeah.
But then you didn't do the A-levels like the people who were going to go on to university. Did you go to college?
Yeah, so they had a sixth form there, and just probably more out of the fact that I didn't really know what I was supposed to do, I stayed where I was comfortable, which was sixth form. It's in the same building as my school. And I did a GMVQ in leisure and tourism because with Stansted Airport becoming busier and the A120 opening and Ryanair taking off at that time in the late 90s, it was deemed the sector to go down because there was a lot of employment at Stansted at that time. So that was probably my strategy, if you could call it one.
Did you enjoy your time doing that course?
Not really, no. I enjoyed college, like the lifestyle of it, sort of still being in some sort of structure and going out in the evening, you start to learn to drive and stuff like that. But I didn't even finish the course. So I got to the end of the 2 years and I was still probably 3 months off finishing it. So I was either faced with going to get a job or go to another college and finish it.
What did your parents say when you invested 2 years of your life in a course, only to give up 3 months before?
I think that they were probably a little bit. It's weird at the time. I didn't really invest in them at the time. I was very withdrawn, so I was just going to college, doing my bit, and telling them it was all okay. And they were very good parents. In fact, we'll leave you to find your own feet. So they didn't really push too hard.
Do you think it would have been different if they did? Both good and bad?
Good and bad, yeah, because I'd have probably pushed to finish the course, but I'd have been driven down a route that I wouldn't be here today. And they were really good. My stepfather was very disciplined and strict with me, sort of primary education and secondary. Once I got my GCSEs, they were very much like, you're an adult now. So they just gave me the space to find my feet.
Do you think if they had come down you hard, you might have been in a worse place?
Yes, because I need a mentor that can push me on need to and pat me on the back. I think if they're pushing me hard in one direction, I would have been worse off. Yeah.
So you need a carrot and a stick.
Yeah. As when I've performed best in my job roles, have a mentor that has a carrot and a stick. Yeah, and at the right times, gives you both.
Okay, so we can all, you're now in your early 40s and you can reflect on that, but I'm sure it didn't seem like that at the time, did it?
No. It's great. I found it difficult with him being quite strict growing up. He was great, like played football in the garden and stuff like that, but education, he was very strict, and timekeeping and being home from playing football at the park by a certain time, when all my friends were allowed to stay out later, in bed by a certain time. But I realised as I got older what great discipline and advice that was, because when you run a business, you have to be disciplined and etc.
I mean, we'll come to this in a second. I think you started your business when you were only 25 or 26.
Yeah, 26.
It's quite a young age,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you finished your college early. Did you go straight into a state agency?
No, I got a job. I love music, so I got a job at a record store, which is great. And I just didn't know what job to go into. And I actually had an interview with a kind of a manufacturing warehouse, but it was the office type job, like in the office doing administration and things like that. And I thought that'll find me. I was almost looking for a job to keep your parents happy, if I'm honest. And then just by chance, my nan rang me and said, your cousin, my older cousin, who I actually hadn't seen him for probably 4 or 5 years, because he drifted apart. He was 6 years older than me. She said, your cousin's trying to get hold of you. I thought, I'll ring you back. Yeah. And I never did. And then about 2 weeks later, my nan rang again and said, your cousin wants to get hold of you. And he had a job, and he said, come for an interview on Saturday. I didn't know what he did for a living, and it was just an office, like administration, office junior type role in Colchester. So I thought I can get to that pretty easy. So I went for the job, and it turned out he worked in an estate agent's independent in the town, and that was how I ended up in an estate agency job.
So none of us actually grow up. I think I know only 2 people that ever wanted to be an estate agent growing up.
Yeah, I've never met anyone.
No, the rest of us didn't.
No, and that's how I got into the industry.
Quite quickly, you moved over to Bradford and Bingley within a year.
Yeah, I did 8 months as an office junior, and I loved that job. I love being in a team. I love being part of something.
So 2001, you'd have been sticking photographs on brochures.
Yeah, sticking with yeah. So the matte copy for the photocopy and the shiny one for the window card. Yeah. 25 copies of each property in the filing cabinet, leafleting, making the files up for the news. Yeah, and I love that job. I was too shy to pick up a telephone. I didn't want to do that. And I would have probably stuck that job for longer. And then the manager of that company went off and set his own business up, and my cousin went with him. So I was left with an owner of an estate agent who wasn't actually an estate agent, asking if I could value and do a few viewings for him. And I thought, this isn't the right way to learn. So Bradford and Bingley was next door to that shop, and I knocked on their door and said, could I have an interview? And I thought, that's the place to go. I did speak to a couple of independents, but I think back potentially 20 odd years ago, to get the training, you needed to be in a corporate, probably more so then than definitely now. So I went to a corporate.
That was quite a mature outlook, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, funny enough, I look back on that as a really, like a pivotal moment for me, when I actually listened to this, thought I need to do something that's going to be, the independent route was easier in the sense I'd have been in the same town, in a more comfortable environment, because a lot of the independents there were quite traditional.
Because you're only 18 years old at this point.
Yeah, and
that's really mature.
Yeah.
That might be stepdad, just little voice in the
ear. Yeah, I think so. It was like, when I did it, I went home and told them, and they were like, why have you done that? And I said, I want to be in a company where I'm going to learn and develop. And it was a more daunting step than corporate then, because the independents in the town were all quite traditional. So I found my feet in one already. And the corporate was a longer trajectory, because you could get a car quicker and independent. The corporate was, but it was the best move I made.
So you spent 2 years there,
Yeah.
and then you moved over to Taylor's.
Yeah, so weirdly, Taylor's was part of the Bradford Bingley group. You know,
Yeah.
the banks bought them all, and then Bradford Bingley, the sales side basically disappeared, and Countrywide bought Taylor's. But in the interim, it went back to being Taylor's, and then it was Taylor's Countrywide, and that was the way my career took off at that point, because I've worked in a few offices for Taylor's across Essex, but they're just the best company. I was probably
Who's the area manager that really you look up to that's kicked you on?
at that time. I had an area manager called Graham Hughes, who owns a company called Bond Residential in Chelmsford. I had an area director called Alec Watt, who's gone into a different sector now, but he gave me my job originally at Bradford Bingley. And I had a manager called Scott Mason, who owns a company in Chelmsford as well. And those three were kind of the mentors I was taught. You know.
What did they teach you? And let's go through them individually.
Alec taught the value of kind of loyalty, because he was a regional manager when I started. He became a regional director, and when I had one of those moments in your career where you're struggling as a negotiator, he spent the time with me when he didn't need to come to the office and actually offered the carrot. And then Scott was my manager that kind of
All day to
day, you know, you're in the office with the team and this is what you can achieve. And then Graham was my regional manager during the recession when I became a branch manager, and was responsible for me for turning a profit in a recession, which was probably.
They were tough times, weren't they?
Yeah.
Did you learn that? I mean, you set up your agency in 2012. What did you learn that has helped you from the Countrywide days? That's helped you when you did open up your own agency in 2012?
Structure. In terms of, I was fortunate at Taylor's Countrywide we still had like the P&Ls as a branch manager. I don't think they have that so much now in a corporate environment, but that type of structure, and kind of the structure with the team as well, because everything was that way driven during at Countrywide.
So you set up your own agency, as I said, in 2012 at the age of 30. What made you do that?
I was at Countrywide as it started to change slightly from.
Was this when Alison Platt was coming in, and it was
Yeah, just around that time, just before that time, but the changes were there. And at regional level, the mentors I've spoke about have all gone. They've gone and done their own businesses, and it wasn't a pleasant place to be necessarily for me. And I just thought I actually, what it was I was in a management meeting, and there was a 40-year-old branch manager in tears at the back because of the pressure coming down. And the changes, you know, the industry was changing quite a bit in terms of.
I mean, you're not the first person to say that. That probably up to just around 2010, Countrywide were at their peak.
Yeah.
And the number of regional directors and managers that I've spoken to, and people that's worked with them, but it did begin to change, didn't it? Because if you don't mind me saying, you were the daddy of this, weren't you?
Yeah.
Everyone feared Countrywide.
Yeah, the training was phenomenal. The management training I did was. I still got the coursework now. I still refer back to it. It was a phenomenal place to work. It just changed, and the ethos. I don't know. You know, they merged a lot of patches over. You know, very quickly, and any kind of continuity gone from patch to patch. And I just didn't like the working environment. And I sort of looked at that branch manager, and I was 28, 29 at the time, and I thought I don't want to be 40, having changes made that are really affecting me personally. So the only way to do that is have my own business where I can dictate my future.
Were you with your wife at the time?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you remember when you said, I want to basically give up my decent income and...
Yeah. I probably should have mentioned this at the beginning, but we actually met at Bradford Bingley.
No.
So she'd grown up in that environment. She was no longer an estate agent. She's got a really good career in a sector. But I turned around and said, do I want to do it myself? And she said, I think it's the right thing to do.
Okay. She recognised that it was messing your brain up.
Yeah, because she saw the change in me coming home from being really proud of being a branch manager and wanting to build something to, I'm not sure this is for me. And she said, I think it's the right thing to do. And I spoke to my stepdad and said, I want to have my own business, like the family. And
you said earlier on that he taught you how to be a business person.
Yeah. And he said, yeah, I think it's the right thing to do. And if you need any help, and he helped me with the setup, and I had a business partners at the time. We did it, launched it.
How did that business partnership go?
not well. It went well with there was 4 of us, and then quickly that went to 3, and then the 3 of us had a phenomenal start. I always like being a disruptor in the sector. It's quite a
Why 3 of you? Or 4/3?
safe. 2 things. One, at the time, I was thinking I was looking at the town I worked in and the numbers. I want a broker because I think a broker gives another arm income stream, and it helps us with synergy. So I was the manager. I took the negotiator, lister, and broker with us. We all come together.
But you're all business partners.
All business partners, yeah.
They say that when you go into business, you should choose your business partners even more carefully than your wife or husband.
Yeah, I would agree with that statement. Yeah, yeah. It was although the company was very successful to begin with, we got to 2 offices, and it was going very well. The synergy with the 3 or 4 directors is the hardest thing I've ever been involved in, and actually affected me 3 or 4 years down the line. Probably.
Are you still friendly with any of the directors?
All of them, yeah. Actually, yeah. I am friendly. Some of them aren't so friendly with each other. But I am.
In hindsight, would you do the same again?
No, if I'd done it again, I'd done it on my own, because I think when you make that leap, you have more. Well, you can.
Well, let's be honest. You still got to listen to a prep. It's just yourself.
Yeah. You can list yourself, and then your self doubts. I mean, it was important at the start for the. We talk about collaboration, and there's a lot of that talk of that in the industry at the moment. But at the start, it was good to have that kind of camaraderie and that backup when you've had a tough day. But the reality is, you're putting that they're responsible for your future, so it can create problems.
Yes, and also I think what we're trying to say here, I've got to be careful what I say, is sometimes people don't pull the weight that they say they are going to do, or they don't do what they're going to say they're doing. You can give yourself a bollocking, excuse my French.
Yeah.
Can't you? But if you're relying on someone else,
it's difficult. And so that was a problem to begin with. There was people had different work ethics. I didn't want to be. I was their manager at the previous company. I wanted it to be shared because I'd had enough being a branch manager. But as it went later on, it wasn't so much the work ethic. The 3 that were left, the work ethic was all good. It was the idea of how to run a business, and you clash, and it causes problems. So I ended up in about 2020. Decided I need to have the business on my own, because the person that was left with me, we're at different ends of the spectrum in terms of what we're trying to achieve.
How did you approach that?
Zoom, because it was lockdown at the time, so
Right.
it wasn't the easiest conversation to have. But it was coming because I was trying to move the business into more of a modern type agency, and that person wanted to keep it more as it was. And I thought to myself, in 5-10 years' time, it's the same moment I had when I decided to set my own business up. If I stay here, when I get into my mid-40s, I'm going to have a business that's been left behind, and I need to do the hard work now. It's going to be a lot of short-term pain, but I need to take it and do it on my own.
So when we came out of lockdown, were you now solo?
2021 solo.
Why did you then go to a brokerage model last year in 24?
So during lockdown, I had the idea of a self-employed model. In fact, I'd rang yourself and you'd given us some advice on listers and how people go through their career. And I decided I think that was the way forward. Then the stamp duty holiday hit, and I just reverted back to type, which was a short-term great idea, long-term probably not. And when I owned the business on my own, one thing I've always been good at as an only child is listening to your gut, because I didn't have anyone to ask a question about who's hanging around with after school, and I had to listen to that. I've made some really good career choices talking about going to Bradford and Bingley based on a gut feeling, but I'd lost the ability to do that. I was a bit confused where I was going, and I didn't listen to that. So 2 years passed, and then I'm getting to a point where I couldn't see how the business was working. So in my opinion, the business I had was based on volume of listings to achieve a result, which I think is probably broken. It doesn't serve the client. And the best thing I'd had when I set up Taylor Milburn was to not do that. And I'd become that. And the costs were so high that I couldn't see a way out of it. And I had a half-baked self-employed model, because I had 2 self-employed agents. And I just met with Adam Mackay and then Adam Day, and literally half-hour meeting. And the gut said to me, this is the place to be for me. So I did. That was
the EXP Teams model, yeah?
Yeah.
There's got to be plenty of estate agents watching this who are saying, well, I'm a decent one man, one woman band. I'm turning over X, but my right move costs and things like that are hellishly expensive. And I've been, correct me if I'm wrong, but your model, this team's model, is where you bring existing estate agents into the EXP model.
Yeah.
And in return for getting rid of the right move Zoopla CRM costs, which you can wave goodbye to, I don't know, £3-4 grand a month at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're offering all that for £150 a month.
Yeah. Yeah.
Plus 30% of the fee, up to about 84 grand,
Yeah.
I think. Again, this is not an advert. On the face of it, to some agents, the bigger ones, it's a no-brainer. There are going to be some agents who basically kind of break even on that. You know, yeah, I've got to give you 30 grand of my first 84 grand, but I'm saving myself 36 grand a month on right move and super costs.
Yeah.
There isn't a huge difference.
No, it's a really good question, because I've spoken to a couple of agents that have asked how it works. So for me, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it properly, and I need to invest more time in, so the marketing and the development of the brokers within the team, and look at the client experience. So I did away with 2 offices that I had. The lease was up on one, the other one comes to agreement with the landlord, and that's a huge saving. So the whole business model has completely changed now. For me, when I looked at what I like doing with, I still love selling houses. I still love listing houses, still love helping clients. I love developing the team, but I think with the self-employed brokerage model, I'm getting the people that are more in tune with who I am as a person. I find it very difficult with employed staff to manage, just that maybe the personality I am. So for me, it's a much more enjoyable experience for me to run a brokerage as opposed to the traditional model.
So you're actually suggesting people should come over to the team's model just so they can save a bit of money. What they should be doing is kind of almost going back to roots of being a one man, one woman band. That's quite
Yeah.
start.
Well, so for me, so the customer experience in a normal model where you're listing, you need to list 50, 60 a month to sell houses, it can get very wrong very quickly. So when you're looking at the brokerage model, whether you keep an office or not, I think the idea is it improves that customer service. So the team I've got now, the volume and the fee levels are, you have to look at yourself as an agent and say, what am I taking on? Is it the right stock? Is it the right fee? And you can build a business model around that works better for you as a person as well. So
you're listing less,
yeah,
but charging more.
Yeah.
You're earning more money.
Yeah.
So really, you didn't move over to the team's model so you could save a couple of grand on Rightmove.
No.
You did it because it enabled you to be a happier estate agent.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me as a person, happier estate agent, happier life, the work life.
So if I had your wife on the sofa here chatting, she'd say you were different back to the man I fell in love with.
Yeah. I would. That's pretty much what you say. Yeah. Yeah. The person I used to be when I first started as an agent, when I met her, I wasn't that person for 4 or 5 years. And it wasn't until I moved away from it I realised. So, and the team's model, the people in our team now are growing their own brands under the reason for changing the name to Muvin. So they're moving with Paul, moving with Josh, and they can grow their own brands as Muvin's an extension of EXP for them.
What will I see in 5 or 10 years' time?
30 brokers is what we'd look at across kind of the local counties to us. We would look at offices. So I think the reason I did away with the offices is I couldn't grow a brokerage with 2 offices where everyone's spread out.
No.
So I wanted to put it into more of a hybrid model where we can meet up and I can develop the core team. But as we grow out, it would be to open offices. So we've got an office we're going to open in Colchester, so it can serve people working in that part of the world if they want to use an office. I personally think the brokerage model, there's a lot that haven't got offices. So to have a regional type office or a town office is still a good idea. In the end, I think brokers will be a hybrid of traditional and self-employed model.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jamie. It's been exceptional. I hope you've learned a lot from you reflecting what you've said. And I wish you well in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.